again, everybody, and welcome to Tiger Sidelines on MC22 alongside Gabe DeArmond of PowerMizzou.com and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch's Dave Matter. I'm Bo Bayman. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk a little basketball later on as Conzo Martin meets with the media in the offseason. We'll talk about the reshaping of the roster. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with gymnastics as they hit the national meet. That's later on. But we'll start with the volleyball team. Speaking of a national tournament, the volleyball team makes the NCAA tournament after 7 months, 24 matches, and 6 straight trips to the NCAA tournament. It's a tough 1-in-1 day, or 1-in-1 go, I should say, for the volleyball team. They beat South Dakota 3-0 in the first round, but then lost to number 9 Ohio State in a sweep as well, 25-17, 25-20. And 25-21, the team finishes 16-8 on the season. Ohio State moves to 16-3, so really not much of a slouch and nothing to be ashamed of in losing in the second round. And the volleyball program just continues to keep on keeping on as they get to the postseason again, Dave.
Yeah, this is kind of what they do. They make the tournament every year because they're good enough to do that. Really consistent winner that they have there, but they don't seem to get too far when they get to this stage. And it's a reduced field this year too. I know all the top seeds had a bye and Missouri had to get out of that first round. But all in all, it's hard to really be too critical of a season that was so disjointed like this. I mean, they chopped it up in pieces and they had to go on a long pause and then come back and finish it out. So hopefully, maybe a little bit regular off season will kind of get this program back in gear, and then they'll go back to doing what they always do. They're always really good in the SEC, and then it's just a matter of who they get matched up with in the NCAA tournament.
And this season certainly was disjointed because there were lots of stops and starts due to COVID, especially in the fall. A lot of pauses in the SEC. I wanted to mention that Kylie DeBerg was named to the Southeast All-Region team. It's her third recognition in as many seasons. And Gabe, I think Dave hit it right on the head when he says this is what they do. They make the postseason. They can get on a little bit of a run, but it takes a big run to get deep into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I know a lot of programs at Missouri that would be satisfied with, hey, let's just start by making the postseason every year. I mean, it is in case we've forgotten to do this, welcome to the offseason, Missouri fans, where we lead with 5 minutes of the NCAA volleyball tournament. But, a good season for the volleyball program. It just, I don't know, it started 12 months ago and it just ended earlier this week. So it'll be nice to get back to a normal year where you kind of know what the calendar is and know who's playing in what season, and maybe even people can watch.
And good news for them is they did win a match in the NCAA tournament. So that is a fine way to finish off the season, 16-8. And as we said, 6 straight tournament appearances. It looks like the number 17 softball team is on its way to making the postseason. However, the softball team has lost 3 in a row. They went 1-2 against number 15 LSU last weekend, winning the first game 9-1. Then they dropped the next 2, 4-2 and 12-5. And then they lost a midweek matchup to Kansas, 4-3. The Tigers are now 29-10 on the season, 7-5 in the SEC. They're on the right track, Dave, but I think they still have work to do.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing when you have a homestand there, great weather and a chance to kind of build your resume, and then to drop 2 in a row to LSU, another team that's right there in the mix around the same spot, Missouri. I think they were ranked 17 and 19 going into that series. And then, to keep it going, to struggle to score some runs against Kansas in a game that you're building up. First time I think they played in the regular season since Missouri left the Big 12. They've played in the postseason, but not the regular season. Missouri's doing everything like, lowercasing the K in all their tweets this week and trying to build that stuff up. But you better win the game if you're going to do that. Then they came up short.
Yeah, they lose that one 4-3. This week, Missouri hosts Mississippi State for 3. Then the Tigers host Kansas City for a midweek game on Tuesday. Again, the 3 this weekend, obviously, Gabe, are the most important. But Larissa Anderson's club on track for a postseason berth and a berth in the regional. And from where this program was even 2 years ago, this is quite a step.
Yeah, it's I think like Dave said, it might not be all the way back to where Aaron Earlywine had it. You prove that in the tournament, in May or June, whenever that is. And I mean, that's a program that made 3 straight College World Series. So if they can recruit another Chelsea Thomas, they can replicate that. But you also might trade a bit of the on-field success for none of the off-field drama, which so far as I know, Larissa Anderson has not had. Any of the drama that followed around the tornado that we grew to know and love, known as Aaron Earlywine.
Yeah, no question about it. And if they can stay out of the headlines there and just keep the headlines about the games, they'll be in good shape. Dave, I would imagine as we hit the middle of April, there's just a few weeks left in the regular season. Now it's kind of the time you have to bear down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about seeding and hosting and all of those things when you get to this point of the season. And the good news for Missouri is they're good enough to be talking about those things and not just worrying about getting into the postseason. Their strength of schedule gets that boost from playing in the SEC. They've got that great facility that they really haven't been able to show off on a national level yet, as much as they'd like to, for a lot of reasons that were out of their control. But this is all about just getting everything in order at this point and putting the best credentials out there that you can.
The other diamond sport has also lost 3 in a row. The baseball team dropped to 1-2 at South Carolina, winning game 1, but then they couldn't win the series. They dropped the next 2, 11-1 and 13-4. Then they lost a midweek game to Missouri State. That was back at home. Mizzou is now 11-20 on the season, 4-8 in the SEC. This week it's Florida, and then they'll visit Missouri State on the return trip down in Springfield. And Gabe, I hate to say it, but this is a season spiraling out of control into a no postseason berth.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very difficult at this point outside of winning the SEC tournament. I mean, the good news is the easier half of their schedule is coming up. Florida and Georgia aren't great, and they play a couple of the bottom half teams out of the Western Division, but this team's going nowhere. They lead the country in walks. I think they've surrendered 216 walks this season. I mean, they're not even making the opposition earn it at this point. And I think, to me, it's bigger than being 12th or 13th in the SEC, which, let's be honest, that's where Missouri's going to be most years. You're going on a good decade of being second in your own state. I mean, I think somebody at Missouri really should sit back and seriously answer the question how much they want to care about this sport. I know nobody really wants to hear that, but the truth is they are 13th in every 13th or 14th, however many SEC baseball teams there are. Missouri's last in every imaginable way: facilities, weather, geography, recruiting base, dedication, fan engagement, all of it. They're last. And so somebody's got to decide if they want to be good at this or not. And if they don't, I mean, it's a lot of money that can be freed up for a lot of other purposes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Gabe touched on it, Dave. The most disappointing thing from last year to this year, to me, has been the pitching. The pitching has let them down practically every weekend.
And it's the veteran pitchers, because they really like the young freshmen they brought along, but it can't really go into SEC series counting on freshman pitchers to carry it for you. They're physically, they're just not ready yet for the most part. The hitting hasn't been terrible lately. They've scored some runs, not enough to win, on the road a series against a ranked SEC opponent. But yeah, and going back to Gabe's point, is this a situation, just throwing money at a program like this that struggles so much, is that really even an answer? I don't know. I mean, this is a team that they can't pay for the outfield turf. I mean, think about how quickly Eli Drinkwitz and Jim Sturk and the Tiger Scholarship Fund has raised almost $30 million for an indoor football facility. It's been a couple months. Well, they're going on several years now that they can't even raise whatever they need, a shred of that total, just to cover the outfield grass, because there's not that demand from the fans. There's just not that buy-in, and I don't know what you can do to change that. even if you can't win without the money. You can't have the money without the winning. So I don't want to say it's a lost cause, but man, if anybody has the answers over there, they haven't come up with them yet.
Yeah, it's trending that way, no doubt, Dave, because here's the part of the problem. The parking is awful if you want to go to a baseball game. If you're on the baseball team, the facility in your dugout, your locker room has been upgraded. That's nice. But if you need to practice indoors other than hitting, you're practicing in the football facility. And that's where the whole maybe 10,000-foot view of, okay, where are we? Where do we want to go with this? Because, Gabe, you're right. Maybe the money could go somewhere else.
Yeah. And I mean, even when Missouri was making the NCAA tournament regularly and they hosted super regionals, I mean, their crowds for the super regionals were like less than a lot of these SEC schools get for a regular weekend series. I mean, it's just, and I don't blame Missouri fans necessarily. It's just not a sport that has ever really been a big factor here. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, look, I don't think Missouri's dropping baseball. I don't think there's any real danger of that. And I want to be clear, it's not a Steve Beazer issue. This isn't about him not being the right guy. I mean, he may not be the right guy. I don't know, but it's not his fault. This has been around for a while.
Yeah. And when you have nights like tonight, they're not playing tonight, but in central Missouri for the last week, and it looks like for the next week, when the sun goes down, it gets pretty darn cold out there. And that's a big factor when you're trying to get people from the surrounding areas, whether it's Jefferson City, whether it's all the way to St. Louis or Kansas City. I mean, I know that's a stretch, but if you're trying to get them here for a baseball game and it's cold, people are looking at that and saying, I'd rather stay home.
No doubt. And there's snow in the forecast next week. So it's not going to get any easier right now. So yeah, like Gabe said, is this a Steve Beazer problem? I don't know. I had some fans in my chat this week say, you think they need to make a coaching change? Well, is Tony La Russa going to be able to turn this thing around? I mean, it's not just about making decisions mid-game. Ultimately, it's about recruiting, but who could recruit to this right now? I don't know. I don't think that's solving any problems right now.
Yeah.
Hey, if there's snow in the forecast, this is my last show. I'm out. I'm moving next week. So
Tuesday.
It's been fun, guys. Good run.
It's been fun, Gabe. No question. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll check your tweets. You're watching Tiger Sidelines right here on MC22. Welcome back, everybody. This is Tiger Sidelines. Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, and I'm Bo Bayman. Thanks, as always, for joining us. And thanks for your tweets this week. We were at Tiger Sidelines, as always, and we got a bunch, starting with Ryan, who says, okay, what's your favorite part about working here?
Here, like, what do we mean by here? Tiger Sidelines?
I would say probably Tiger Sidelines. Let's make it that.
Yeah. Oh. Used to be sometimes we would get snacks when we could do the show in person. That was cool. Like if there was donuts there or something, but hadn't been in person for a minute. Maybe we'll get together again.
I like the tweets more than anything. More tweets. That's what we need. That way we can just riff without a script.
That and the pre-show meetings are always my favorite. Bruce says, any rumors on how Martin will use the last two basketball scholarships?
Yeah, he wants a bigger player. I think he said 6'6" to 6'10" who can score, and Tamar Bates, high school guard. And if he doesn't get, he's got to get the big guy. I mean, they have to add a big guy somewhere. It doesn't matter which one it is. But I think Tamar Bates is more of a, hey, if we don't get him, we're not just going to go chasing anybody. We're not putting Ed Chang or Axel Okongo on this roster this year.
Yeah, it makes sense to save a spot open for next year because you only lose one senior, Javon Pickett, in theory. Now anybody can move on, but if you're wanting to upgrade the roster a year from now, especially with high school recruits, there's some value in having an open spot.
And I think I read, Gabe, that you said there's still 1,400 people in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think that was about the number. Last I saw, 1,300 or 1,400. I mean, there are guys out there like you can fill a roster. It's about filling the roster with the right guys.
No question. Ross wants to know, or he says, it'll be interesting to see how the transfer rule changes recruiting. Will some teams just go after high-end high school talent and fill out recruiting classes with proven college talent? Coaches that make recruiting college talent a priority would maybe have an edge. Do you think that that's correct? I think that if you're going to go with some experience, like, the Tigers have with their 3 that they're coming in, those guys will be, to me, a little bit ahead of the curve against the 5 high school guys coming in.
Yeah, I think a blended approach is probably the smart way to go. I mean, keep recruiting high school guys and then, add what you can find through the transfer portal. I mean, there are going to be some coaches, I think, that will exclusively shop that portal. Maybe a certain Eric Musselman in Arkansas seems to offer everybody and take everybody. And that could work out very well for them. But there's still going to be coaches that are going to go after, the best 5-star guys out there. Although we're seeing that teams that have been investigated by the FBI are suddenly not getting those 5-star guys as much as they used to. So I think the talent pool will be dispersed a little bit more, and the portal seems to be adding to that.
I think the ones who should exclusively shop in transfers are mostly mid-major coaches, because what you do is you take the guys who have talent but just weren't quite getting enough playing time at the SEC, Big Ten, ACC level, and they come down and you get 2 of those guys every year, then you've probably got 2 of the 5 best players in your conference, and you can go win your conference. If you want to win on a high level in a major conference, you're not going to do it exclusively by taking guys from mid-majors and making them better players or cast-offs from another Power 5 program. You've got to have elite high-end high school talent in your program if you're going to win these leagues. And that's not going to change. Now, you can supplement it with different ways, but and like Hanzo said too, you're going to go sign a high school guy. You better be ready to play that guy. And I think that's one of the, I don't want to say mistakes, because it's not like Trey Jackson's been great where he went or anything, but it's one of the reasons he's lost guys, because he still has approached it a little bit like when he got to West Lafayette in 1989 or whatever it was. And Gene Cady basically let him know, hey man, it's going to take you a year or 2 to get on the floor. Kids aren't doing that now. If it's going to take them a year or 2 to get on the floor, they're going to go get on the floor somewhere else.
So going back to your first point, Gabe, that's kind of like Elon going in and getting a Torrance Watson, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's honestly what it is. It's the approach that got Kim Anderson this job. I mean, he won a Division II or national title because he took a bunch of kids who weren't quite playing at Division I, and they came to him, and it was their last chance. And he had more talent than almost everybody he played. And so it's going to work at some of those lower levels. I mean, yeah, Torrance Watson, he wasn't going to be a contributor here, but maybe in the, I don't know, the Southern Conference or whatever league, the Colonial, I don't even know what league they're in, maybe he can be.
Brandon wants to know, do we have any idea what the basketball team is capable of ceiling floor? And I don't think that we can answer that, maybe even by Christmas.
Oh, it's also all relative to who they're playing against. Everybody is having major roster rebuilds, really, except Alabama. I think they're the only SEC team that hasn't lost somebody to the portal. There's others like Mississippi State and Ole Miss that have lost 5-6 guys. And then others like Florida and Arkansas and Auburn are just loading up on transfer portal guys. And then other schools are losing guys to the NBA draft, but they could come back before the deadline. So really don't know. I mean, you can have an idea what Missouri's roster is going to look like, but maybe it ends up being on the low end as far as talent in the SEC. Maybe just by some of the additions and subtractions elsewhere, it's more mid-tier. So I think I don't see a major drop off, because I don't think Missouri was all that great by the end of the season. And I think they've added more than they lost in terms of underclassmen. Now, they're not going to add a Drew Smith or a Jeremiah Tillman, but I think they've added more than they lost to the portal for sure.
I would say the ceiling would be around what this year's team was, and the floor would be less. I mean, I think the one issue is nobody's taken more advantage of the transfer portal than the SEC. I mean, Auburn and Alabama and Arkansas and Tennessee Missouri's added guys. They've added guys. I mean, guys with really high potential ceilings, I think. So I know Konzo likes the pieces he's added, But what I still don't see on this team is kind of that kind of eye-popping, oh, hey, that guy, he can take over a game.
Sure.
Yep. Is Mizzou basketball in on any big guys that you know of? Jordan Wilmore, the only big. Other than that, I'm pretty satisfied with how the portal has worked so far, says Kelly.
And Kobe Brown's a big. He's a 6'8", 240-pound guy that played power forward for last year. So I don't see how you don't count him as a big. I mean, they don't have a 6'10" center, or even a backup like Mitchell Smith. But the guy from Oakland that hasn't committed anywhere, Daniel Olapato. There's a couple other big guys out there. There's a lot more point guards and combo guards in the transfer portal than there are established 6'10" Division I big guys, because those guys are, A, they're hard to find. Most of them go to the NBA, and two, they get caught up pretty fast in this process.
Mark wants to know if Jordan Clarkson has any eligibility left. I don't believe
Pretty
so.
sure no. I mean, he's been in the league for like 7 years now.
Dan says, do you think the basketball teams will be able to rebuild faster and maintain success because of the transfers? Or do you think it's going to be harder to retain good players once a program has been rebuilt?
Look, we look at this in a vacuum. Hey, my school lost these guys and added these guys. Well, there's 349 other teams that are playing by the same rules. It's kind of what we said when Missouri joined the SEC and started getting all this TV money, right? Yeah, you're getting it, but so is everybody else. So what you did is go from a decent house in a middle-class neighborhood to a decent class in a really rich neighborhood, but you're still just in a decent house, and there's still nicer houses around you. And Missouri, it's not good, bad for Missouri. It's what every team in the country is doing.
And also, this is not going to be an every year thing, because this is a one-time transfer rule. Amari Davis can't transfer again next year without sitting out. The seniors, there's not going to be super seniors in the future. Mark Smith can't go to Kansas State a year from now. This is the only chance he'd have to do that.
I'm actually anticipating Mark Smith may be on his 9th school in about 4 years and still somehow playing college ball.
Drew Buggs, for that matter, too. Sure. KJ Walton. Sure. But I maybe every 3 or 4 years, like Hanzo said, once you cycle in a new group of college players. But I don't think we're going to see 1,400 players in the portal a year from now.
Our last one is from Steve, and he says, what's the quarterback situation moving forward? Does Macon have a shot at starting, or is it the backup, or does he redshirt?
Yeah. Look, I don't ever want to say in April a kid doesn't have a chance to start. But I think there's a far better chance that Tyler Macon is Missouri's 3rd string quarterback than that he is even really pushing Connor Bazelak to start. I mean, Connor Bazelak threw for 2,300 yards last year as a freshman. By the way, he has 4 years of eligibility left. Brady Cook has a year in the system. Macon hasn't played for a year and a half. I know we fall in love with big names in recruiting, but let's just see. I mean, the truth is, somewhere between Brady Cook, Tyler Macon, and Sam Horn, at least one of those guys, and probably two, will never start a game here.
It'll be interesting to see if they put in some plays for Macon, because you never know if they might do that, whether it's short yardage, whether it's, a gadget play, whatever. But, I'm with you. It's Bazelak's to lose, right, Dave?
Yeah, he was the co-SEC freshman of the year. And he wasn't a perfect quarterback last year. He wasn't an all-SEC candidate and just a loaded conference for quarterbacks. But, it's one thing to think that, but then talk to the players and coaches. They're not just saying, yeah, he's the starter. He's saying this is his team. That's how his offensive teammates talk about the offense. It is Connor's offense. It is Connor's team. Tyler Macon would have to be out of his mind incredible in the month of August, and combine that with Bazelak just coming out and throwing an interception every rep for him to lose his job without there being some kind of injury situation. So I don't expect that to happen. I think he's got a better chance of redshirting than starting. There's no other way to put it.
All right. Thanks for all those tweets. We're at Tiger Sidelines on Twitter. One more break. When we come back, we'll wrap it up. You're watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back, everybody. Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, and I'm Bo Bayman. This is Tiger Sidelines. Thanks for watching. Want to wish good luck to Hannah McCrary and Sydney Schaefer as they compete in the 2021 NCAA Women's Gymnastics Championships this weekend. And also want to mention Mizzou Athletics received another $1 million donation. It was $1 million plus, and of course was earmarked for the football indoor facility. And Dave talked about this a little bit earlier. Dave, they're raising over $30 million already.
Yeah, the record from what I was told for 7-figure donations for one fiscal year is 11, and that was back in 2017. And this gives them, I believe, 9. So pretty good for a pandemic. I guess people with lots of money can still afford to give lots of money, and so it's a good situation. I mean, that's they put it out there. Hey, we need this money to build this facility. Eli Drinkwitz believes we need this facility, so buck up, and the donors have. And it's not all just one lump sum either. This is several different donors, piling the money in toward this one facility.
Hey, you guys remember about 12 months ago when we were like, hey, I wonder if this whole pandemic thing, I wonder if it'll kind of reset the priorities and people will come to their senses a little bit. Guess not, man. You got to start building that indoor water slide.
And Gabe, give them credit for striking while the iron's hot. I mean, Eli's hot. They beat LSU, and look at all this money they're getting.
Yeah, look, I can't tell anybody what to do with their money. There's people with this amount of money. That's great. If that's what they want to do with it, more power to them. And look, Eli Drinkwitz is hot right now. I mean, he can. I'm pretty convinced he could tell Missouri fans, hey, you just take your cash out in the parking lot, you burn it. That's going to help me out. A lot of them would do it. So more power to them.
They would say we can't do it. It's deer season. All right. That's going to do it for this week of Tiger Sidelines. For Brian and Matt behind the scenes, that's Gabe DeArmond and Dave Matter, and I'm Bo Bayman. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on Tiger Sidelines, everybody.